Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. In today's episode, we are in Belgium, and more precisely in the city of Bruges, which is a town in the Flemish side of Belgium and also closer to the coast. But the reason that we're visiting this town is because it's really rustic and beautiful. It has a real medieval feel to it, and at the same time, it's kind of like the Venice of Belgium. So it's really worth the visit. Everything is just so beautiful here. So without any further ado, let's explore. Bruges is the capital and largest city of the province of West Flanders in the Flemish Region of Belgium, the northwest of the country, and the sixth largest city of the country by population. Along with other canal-based northern cities, such as Amsterdam and St Petersburg, it is sometimes referred to as the Venice of the North. Bruges has significant economic importance thanks to its port and was once one of the world's chief commercial cities. After 1965, the original medieval city experienced a renaissance. Restorations of residential and commercial structures, historic monuments, and churches generated a surge in tourism and economic activity in the downtown area. One thing that I really wanted to highlight is all the cool brick houses that we find here in Belgium, not just in Bruges, but pretty much all over Belgium. They have a ton of brick houses. Usually they're made out of red brick, sometimes out of brown brick, and sometimes they also have white facades, but it's because the red brick was painted. And yes, this is definitely the identity of Belgium, and it kind of gives this real medieval look to the whole country. And a couple of decades ago, they kind of demolished quite a few of these old houses with the old facades, but then they realized that they were actually destroying the history of Belgium. So nowadays, when they build new buildings, they have to keep the facade and they can renovate the inside, and it's a really cool and intricate work that they do. But here in Bruges, it's really cool to see all of these old brick buildings, and it really gives that medieval look which we are looking for. This style of red brick house is called brick Gothic or baksteen Gothique in Dutch, and is a specific style of Gothic architecture common in Northeast and Central Europe, especially in the regions in and around the Baltic Sea, which do not have resources of standing rock, but in many places many glacial boulders. This type of building became prevalent in the 12th century because wooden architecture had become inadequate for the construction of monumental structures. And since the bricks used were made of clay, available in copious quantities in the northern German plain, they quickly became the normal replacement for building stone. The so-called monastic format became the standard for bricks used in representative buildings. About a quarter of medieval Gothic brick architecture is standing in the Netherlands, in Flanders, and in French Flanders. Being in Belgium, well, we do have quite a few parks right here, and Bruges, well, having quite a few canals. Well, there's even canals in the parks. It doesn't just go through the city, it's pretty much everywhere. It's just so beautiful because, well, I'm a city boy, and going to parks is just wonderful, having all this nature and being able to enjoy the trees and the ducks and all the cool stuff that comes with being in a park. And just being here in Bruges, it almost feels like I'm here in an old town, in a medieval town, and then mixed in with this water, well, it makes it even more magical. The main park adjacent to the Bruges station leading to the center of the city is called the Begijnen West. It's part of the old city fortress that runs near the Begijnhof. This park is truly historical, as it already existed in 1244 when the city fortresses that adjoin it were built. This area was used for centuries as a bleaching ground and vegetable garden, and then the fortress became a wide walking path which was planted with trees. One of the buildings that really needs to be highlighted in this area is the old St. John's Hospital, which is actually really interesting because it is a hospital dating back from the 12th century, making it one of the oldest hospitals here in Europe, if not even the oldest. And it's still an active facility, but more so as a museum. It's very medieval looking. It's really cool walking through this premise because, well, you see a lot of places where they used to back in the day cultivate their plants, and of course nowadays it's just plants, but back in the day it used to be medicinal plants. And then some of the buildings are also interesting. They have quite a few steps on the outside of them, and the reason that they have these steps is because back in the day having more steps meant that you were wealthy, and well, having steps outside of the house was kind of a way to show off that you were a wealthy person. And this plaza and this hospital definitely has a lot of wealth because a lot of the places have a lot of steps. Located next to the Church of Our Lady, Old St. John's Hospital contains some of Europe's oldest surviving hospital buildings. The hospital grew during the Middle Ages and was a place where sick pilgrims and travelers were cared for. The site was later expanded with the building of a monastery and convent. It was not until 1977 that the building's function as a hospital stopped, when all its facilities moved to a newer modern hospital in Bruges, St. Peter's. Today, part of the hospital complex holds the popular Hans Memling Museum, named for the German-born early Netherlandish painter, where a number of works are displayed, as well as hospital records, medical instruments, and other works of art. Behind me, we have the building of the Church of Our Lady in Bruges, which is a really old church, a really old building which dates back to the 13th century. But there was also some renovations and other things that were added to this building in the 14th and 15th century. Nowadays, it stands as a monument that kind of shows the devotion of, well, Bruges to the Catholic religion, because this city was the most religious place in Belgium, and it is a really beautiful building, and it kind of shows, again, as I said, the devotion, the richness, the wealthness of the city, and it kind of also makes me think of, or makes me dream of, how people used to live back in those days, because looking at this and walking through a modern society but seeing all this old stuff at the same time kind of makes me dream that I'm almost back in the past, living and walking through all of these medieval places. The Church of Our Lady has a tower that sits at 115.6 meters in height and remains the tallest structure in the city and the third tallest brickwork tower in the world. The church's courtyard is also very well worth to visit, as it has a pretty canal going through it, with a bridge making this place seem like it was taken straight out of a Shakespeare play. Minus all the tourists, of course. But even so, looking at the houses built straight into the water makes one truly appreciate the history of this town and its close relationship to the water. Didn't I tell you guys that Bruges is just like Venice? Well, yes, we have so many canals that are lunging all of these streets and all of these buildings. And to top it all off, a lot of these places are so old and medieval looking, well, because the buildings are from the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th century. So yeah, it's kind of like walking back in time, walking through a Shakespearean play. It's just so beautiful to be here. The Bruges canals have for centuries been the veins of the city. Even though nowadays it seems like the canals are mostly there to cater to its visitors with boat tours of the city, the Bruges canals were originally built between 1896 and 1907 to connect Bruges with the North Sea. The most important Bruges canal is the Bruges-Ostend Canal, which is a 24.6 kilometer canal that connects the North Sea to the Belgian interior, running between the cities of Ostend, located at the Belgian coast, and Bruges. Being in Bruges, it's without much of a surprise that I have noticed that there is so much art pretty much everywhere, like the statues behind me, which are of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And yes, because this town is very religious, well, the statues may be religious too, but they are really cool and modern. And there's not just religious art right here in Bruges, there's a ton of other things. There's a bunch of different sculptures and art pieces that can be seen pretty much everywhere while walking through the city, and this adds so much charm to all of this town, and I'm really so happy to be in Bruges and discovering all of these medieval looking places. The 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse art sculptures by Rick Poot really stood out for me with its set of 4 bronze sculptures, but as mentioned, the city is very medieval looking, so sculptures big and small can be found like Easter eggs on the sides of its various churches and buildings. And being a tourist town, museums are pretty much on every corner. That being said, it is worth to actually really gaze at the buildings around the city, as hidden art treasures are really to be found in the least likely of places. What's amazing in this city is that even the commercial street still looks kind of medieval, simply because, well, it's older buildings that house newer shops, so there's a mix of modern and old, and it just works because the bottom side is a store, so it's all modern looking, and then the top side, the top floors still look old and still have all the charm of all the older windows. And it's just gorgeous. And if you're not just trying to shop, there's also plazas that have a ton of stores and other restaurants where you can sit down, enjoy a cafe, enjoy the beautiful weather. It's not always beautiful weather in Belgium, but today is a beautiful day and you get to enjoy all this medieval magic city that is Bruges. The most commercial streets in the center of Bruges are Steenstraat and Zuidstaanstraat that form the southern two axes that connect with Grote Markt. Both axes are today the most important shopping streets in the center of Bruges. Being in Belgium, we can quickly find quite a few chocolate stores that offer authentic chocolate that tastes leagues better than what one would be able to find at a regular store. Like many other places in Belgium and in Europe in general, we have a grand central place in the center of each city, and Bruges is no exception. We have the Grote Markt, or la Grand Place, or in English, the Grand Place, which is the central market where everybody gathers, and there's a ton of historical buildings, including La Beffroi, which is a really tall building here in Bruges. It's 83 meters tall, and if you're willing to go up the steps, you can actually see a whole view of the city. We're not going to do that in this video, but it's still a really beautiful building to see right here from the Grand Place. And of course, there's a lot of cafes and restaurants. This is typical Belgium, and obviously quite a few tourists too. But yeah, it's really beautiful. It's once again super medieval, and it just has this really cool European feel to it. The Markt, or Market Square in English, is located in the heart of the city of Bruges and covers an area of about 1 hectare. Some historical highlights around the square include the 12th century belfry and the West Flanders provincial court. In the center of the market stands the statue of Jan Breydel and Pieter de Koning. In 1995, the market was completely renovated and parking in the square was removed, making it mostly traffic-free, thus being more celebration-friendly. The renovated market was reopened in 1996 with a concert by Helmut Lotti. Nowadays, this is the gathering place for all its tourists, and it is extremely busy all the time. The square is surrounded by restaurants and cafes, making it the perfect place to try some traditional Belgian food or have a drink while admiring all the historical buildings and the beauty of Bruges architecture. Bruges certainly is a beautiful city, but at the same time there truly are quite a few tourists, and that makes it kind of hectic. But I did find a cool little quaint park, and I feel very serene right here, so I thought that this would be the best place to end this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed coming on this visit of Bruges, and if you did enjoy it, please be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, leave me a comment too. Let me know if there's other places in Brussels or in Belgium you'd like me to visit, or maybe other countries. As you guys saw from my other videos, I'm not too scared to travel. With that being said, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.